Discover the incredible turnaround. When a CEO met a poor girl by mistake, their lives transform. Rain pounded against the diner windows, drenching the world outside. Sarah, a weary 20-year-old waitress, maneuvered through the cramped aisles of Harvey's diner, serving coffee to her regulars with a feeble smile. Another day, another shift, her mind awash with worries about her younger brother Ben and their mother, who had crumbled after their father's death. Every tray she carried was heavy with the weight of expectations, to keep her family afloat, to coax her mother back to life, to not let them down. She watched the rain streak down the glass, feeling as if it were seeping into her bones, leaving her feeling cold and stuck. The bell jingled above the door as Ethan, a 35-year-old tech CEO from Silicon Valley, stepped inside, shaking off droplets like a dog fresh from a bath. He was on a relentless pursuit of profit margins and quarterly goals, but momentarily, the storm cracked his meticulous facade. The rich scent of coffee snagged his attention, and he settled into a booth. As Sarah approached, she felt the absences that swirled around her like a storm cloud. The man before her was polished and powerful, so different from her life. She poured his coffee, fingers trembling slightly, her thoughts racing. Would he notice my faded uniform? The texture of my dreams crumbling under the immense weight of responsibility? Rough weather out there, Ethan said, breaking the silence. I've seen worse, she replied, forcing cheerfulness into her voice. The truth was, she had faced storms far heavier than rain. A chill gnawed at her as Ethan spoke about his meetings, his words soaring high over her reality, their stark difference carving a deeper rift inside her. She listened. Each corporate victory of his only fueled her fears. Her dreams of college felt impossibly naive compared to this man who wielded success like a finely tailored suit. As the conversation deepened, she let slip snippets of her life. The look on Ethan's face twisted her stomach in knots. Did he see the cracks in her facade? When she mentioned her struggle to keep her family afloat, his brow furrowed, and something flickered in his eyes. Was it pity? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. It was then that the storm brewing in her heart became unbearable. The weight of her dreams pressed down like the rain pounding on the diner's roof. Could she really grasp the life she yearned for, or would she remain forever tethered to this diner's worn linoleum floors? Ethan's admiration for her determination began to take root like a blossoming flower amid the harshness of their reality. Yet, rooted beneath that, doubts grew. Could her family's shameful past, forever lurking like shadows in her heart, unravel the fragile connection budding between them? In the depths of her turmoil, she felt a flicker of hope, yet every hopeful thought battled the suffocating fear of being pulled back into the cycle of despair that enveloped her life. As their conversation danced around ambitions and regrets, Sarah knew they were both standing at a precipice, yearning to leap but bound by expectations and societal chains. What if she dared to dream, knowing the revelation that might finally shatter her sense of self? The rain continued its unyielding descent, mirroring her inner chaos, leaving her to ponder the eternally haunting question: was success a measure of dreams fulfilled or of battles fought, lost, and learned? The bell above the diner door chimed again, stealing Sarah's attention from her racing thoughts. Ethan remained seated, a contemplative expression marring his usually confident demeanor. For Sarah, his presence had transitioned from an objective worry into a tangible embodiment of hope, but also intimidation. As their last exchange hung in the air, she felt a desperate urge to change the narrative, to rediscover her voice amid the clamor of uncertainty. Taking a deep breath, she leaned against the counter, preparing herself mentally for the next words. What drives you? I mean, you must have a reason to keep pushing. The question tumbled out, raw and unguarded. Victory in any endeavor was rarely accidental, and she sensed there was more to him than a simple facade of success. Ethan looked surprised, as if her query had chased away the limits of small talk. I suppose, the thrill of innovation. I like solving problems, creating something that didn't exist before. It's energizing. He paused, glancing around the diner as if searching for inspiration among the humble surroundings. But truthfully, there's a part of me that fears failure. I measure my worth with my achievements. His honesty surprised her. Beneath his polished exterior lay fears and anxieties that mirrored her own. In that moment, an unspoken connection flickered between them. She, too, was no stranger to scrutiny, constantly battling against the past that taunted her existence. Failure feels like a prison, she confessed, the weight of her burdens threatening to overwhelm her. I've been trying to hold everything together for so long. Sometimes I think I'm not strong enough to deal with it. Ethan leaned in, intrigued. What do you really want, Sarah? Although she wanted to tell him about her dreams of becoming something more, something beyond the diner, words caught in her throat. Instead, she shifted her gaze to the window, where the rain trickled down like a stream of lost opportunities. She realized doing it all was just survival, not living. She was merely existing at the edges of her greater potential. A spark ignited somewhere within her, a realization that if she didn't grasp her dreams, they would forever haunt her. Fear had dug deep roots, but perhaps it was time to yank them out. I want to be someone who makes things happen, she finally said, her voice steadying with newfound resolve. I want to go back to school and help my family rise from this. Ethan's expression shifted, intrigue lining his features with the hint of fascination. You know, Sarah, sometimes the leap from the familiar can be the hardest but also the most rewarding. You don't have to do it all alone. Her heart ached at the possibility of taking on the challenge of transformation with someone guiding her. But would she dare to trust? Doubts tangled with hesitant hope, weaving a fabric of confusion that left her breathless. Do you really think it's possible? She asked, scrutinizing him. What if I fail? Failure is a step, not a sentence, he replied, his eyes locking onto hers, bright and unwavering. His faith felt like a lifeline, but beneath her surface lay the nagging anticipation of risk. For a moment, doubt wrestled with determination. If she let her guard down and shared her dreams, would he see her? Would he appreciate her ambition, or would it fade like mist when the sun broke through? Breath shallow, fear mingling with excitement, she weighed her next move carefully. Maybe. I need help figuring out a plan, she said, each word a tentative step toward a vast unknown. Then let us do it, Ethan replied with a resolute nod. We'll start mapping it out together. As the words washed over her, an exhilarating sensation swept through Sarah. For the first time, the rain pounding against the window felt less like an oppressive barrier and more like the rhythmic pulse of her awakening. A deeper resolve formed in her heart. She could shift her narrative. But just as excitement began to fill her, a chilling thought darted through her mind, the nagging belief that stepping into this new world could lead to more vulnerability and exposure than she was prepared to handle. The storm outside continued its relentless fury, mirroring the tempest within her as she clutched onto this fragile thread of hope. She reached for change with outstretched arms, but as the rain blurred the edges of her vision, the grounding worry whispered that sometimes the hardest choice wasn't daring to leap, but daring to believe she was deserving of the journey. And in that revelation, one crucial question echoed loudly in her mind: could she truly transform her life, or would she let fear once again bind her to the diner's linoleum floors? The next morning, the sun transformed the diner's familiar skyline into a canvas of possibilities. Sarah stepped through the door, her heart slightly lighter than before. The rain had washed away a small part of her anxiety, but significant work lay ahead. She could almost hear Ethan's encouragement echoing, igniting a flicker of possibility within her. She arrived early to prepare for the day, pouring coffee and flipping through menus with a focus she hadn't felt in years. Each movement felt intentional, a small declaration that change was indeed underway. The mere act of arranging tables and cleaning counters took on a new meaning. Her life needed reorganization, too. The old Sarah, the one shackled by self-doubt, began to dissolve before her eyes. The door chimed, and the familiar faces of her regular customers greeted her. She exchanged smiles as streams of conversation flowed effortlessly. Small interactions, once drudgery, turned into places of engagement where she found joy. But an undercurrent of trepidation remained. The anxiety of stepping into the unknown loomed large. Ethan had promised to help her draft a plan that week, and she had been mulling it over since their last encounter. What did that look like? Enrolling in classes? Studying late into the night? Was she truly ready for the commitment, the disruption of her routines? During a quiet moment between rushes, she took out the tattered notebook she usually kept hidden beneath her register. It was a modest collection of aspirations, sketches of what her life could entail beyond the diner. Her fingers traced the pages, lingering on a scribbled list of potential schools. As she read through each one, a strange mix of yearning and apprehension tightened in her chest. She wrote down a note for herself. What excites you? Gripping the pen tightly, her heart raced at the thought. She wanted to explore business, to understand finance, not just survive, but flourish. Ideas rushed in, each more ambitious than the last: tutoring younger students, creating community initiatives for learning. Wouldn't it be fulfilling to help others, evoking the same spirit that was beginning to blossom within her? Just do it, she whispered to herself, as if summoning the courage through sheer will. But with every idea came an avalanche of what-ifs. What if she struggled? What if she failed? The diner door swung open again, and Ethan stepped in with an effortless confidence that stirred both admiration and apprehension within her. He greeted her with a warm smile that injected fresh enthusiasm into the atmosphere. Ready to dive into our plan? He asked, eyes dancing with eagerness. Armed with a notepad, he settled into his usual booth, making it clear he intended to take this seriously. Yeah, I've been thinking about it, she replied, surprising herself with the steadiness of her voice. Ethan pulled out a fresh sheet of paper and began jotting down points. Let's start with your interests. What excites you? A wave of vulnerability washed over her. Laying it all out on the table felt like exposing herself to judgment. The tension gripped her chest. But when she spoke, her voice gained strength. I want to study business. I want to understand how to create opportunities, not just for myself but for others. Ethan's eyes sparkled with approval, encouraging her to continue. That's a brilliant start. What does the next step look like? She grinned, the initial thrill of the idea coursing through her. I guess I could start looking into programs. Maybe online courses that let me study at home first while working here. Yes. That'll give you a solid foundation. Have you thought about finding a tutor or mentor? He suggested, leaning forward as if drawing her deeper into the conversation. The gears in her mind clicked into place, and the flash of excitement bubbled inside her. Yet the whirlwind of doubt still breached her walls. What if she couldn't keep up? Could she handle potential embarrassment when her knowledge fell short? Suddenly, the crummy linoleum that had previously felt like a cocoon now seemed like the anchor to her past life. The personal and professional growth demanded would require accountability and a redefinition of who she was. She felt a surge of urgency, realizing this moment was her tipping point. Maybe I could reach out to someone who has accomplished what I want to do, she mused, spurred on by Ethan's encouraging nod. Their conversation unfolded into a brainstorm of ideas: networking, research projects, internships. Each suggestion sent a ripple of exhilaration through her. Yet, deep inside, a shadow of uncertainty loomed larger, reminding her of the risk involved in soaring beyond her comfort zone. As they wrapped up their meeting, a lingering question clouded her thoughts. Could she muster the resilience to confront her fears head-on? Failure loomed like a specter over her, teasing the memory of past setbacks, challenging the resolve she had just begun to forge. With a flicker of determination, Sarah shoved aside lingering doubts, prioritizing her dreams over fear. The time had come to transform those dreams into a tangible reality, even if it meant exposing her vulnerabilities. As Ethan stood, ready to leave, the prospect of action crackled with electric anticipation. Let's meet again tomorrow to check in on things, he said while rising from the booth. Sure, she replied, feeling a swell of gratitude and hope for the journey that lay ahead. Every step counts, right? Absolutely, he asserted. But remember, it's not just about taking steps, it's about facing what's holding you back. As he walked away, waved by the diner's charm, Sarah felt the weight of that truth settle deep within her. The promise of change hung thick in the air, and as uncertainty perched itself alongside thrill, a reality began to crystallize. Was she prepared not just to dream, but to confront the shadows of self-doubt that had long kept her at bay? And in that moment of unraveling, one question emerged from the depths of her consciousness: what would it take to face the demons of her past and step boldly into the promise of her future? The following morning brought a renewed sense of purpose for Sarah. She sat at her kitchen table, sipping her coffee, her notebook spread out in front of her. There was no longer a sense of overwhelming dread. Instead, a quiet determination filled the air. The unfamiliar prospect of planning for her future now seemed like a challenge she was willing to undertake. As she thumbed through potential business courses online, each click brought a rush of excitement mixed with fear. She was stepping into a realm where her past experience in the diner felt utterly unrelated. Questions swirled around in her head. Would anyone take her seriously? Would she be able to keep up with younger, sharper minds? But these doubts began to sound like echoes of her past, a past she was desperate to distance herself from. The thought of mentorship danced at the front of her mind, Ethan's suggestion surfacing vividly. Who could she reach out to? Someone in finance? An entrepreneur? Confronting that question stirred both anticipation and apprehension. The act of seeking someone out felt like a mountain before her, all steep and rocky. By late afternoon, she found herself seated in her regular booth at the diner, tapping her fingers anxiously on the laminated surface. She had promised herself that today would be the day she would take the first step. The door swung open and in walked a customer she recognized from the weekends, Claire, a local small business owner who sold handmade jewelry. Maybe this was the nudge she needed. "Hey Claire! Can I ask you a quick question?" Sarah called out, summoning every ounce of bravery she could gather. Claire approached, a friendly smile brightening her face. "Of course, Sarah. What's up? Do you think I could get your advice on something?" The words tumbled out, betraying the rawness of her vulnerability. "Absolutely. Let's grab some coffee." Claire's response was immediate, filled with warmth. They settled into a booth, and the initial small talk shifted quickly to Sarah's ambitions. "I'm hoping to study business," she confessed, feeling a rush of liberating honesty. "But I have no idea where to start. I was wondering if you could share how you got your business off the ground?" Claire leaned back, her expression shifting to one of thoughtful consideration. I didn't have it all figured out either. It was one step at a time for me. I started online courses, too. It was a weird mix of courage and fear, but the courage always won. "You really think that's possible for me?" Sarah asked, nerves bubbling. "Absolutely. You're already here talking about it. That's a giant leap. Many people don't even begin." Claire's eyes sparkled with genuine encouragement. "Find a program that feels right, something you're excited about. It'll take hard work, but you've got the passion to push through." Feeling the conversation flow, Sarah seized the moment. "Could I shadow you at the shop sometime? Just to see how you navigate the business side?" Claire looked impressed. "I would love that. It's such a great way to learn by doing. I can show you the ropes and connect you to some resources. It's one thing to learn from books, it's another to see it in action." As they continued discussing the potential opportunity, Sarah's heart raced with the thrill of possibility. She felt the unfamiliar sensation of hope swell within her, a contrast to the self-doubt that had once loomed large. Once back home, Sarah immediately began researching online courses, her pulse quickening with every click. But before she could get lost in the sea of options, the shadows of self-doubt crept back in. Would she be able to balance work and studies? Would she understand the material well enough? Amidst this internal conflict, she opened her notebook and wrote, "What can I gain from pushing through discomfort?" She pondered her past just long enough to remind herself that each instance of discomfort was a step toward growth. The question of reaching out to a mentor echoed in her mind, but now it carried a lighter shade of resonance. She began crafting a message to Claire, requesting a time to meet. Fear stirred in her gut, but the flicker of resolve flared once again. In the moment of sending off that email, an unexpected wave of vulnerability crashed over her. What if Claire reacted dismissively? What if all this led to embarrassment instead of enlightenment? Yet even as dread whispered those what-ifs, another voice sounded louder. What if this was the breakthrough she had been waiting for? Settling her mind, Sarah resolved to prepare thoroughly for her meeting. It wasn't merely an endeavor to learn for herself. It was about pushing past the apathy that had clouded her life. As the day came to a close, Sarah stared out into the dimming sky, a sense of determination propelling her forward. Yet a twinge of apprehension gnawed at her, a firm reminder that the journey toward change would not be easy. With her heart pounding, she reflected on the task ahead, and anticipation gripped her, a determination to confront her fears before they could settle in. Would stepping into the unknown lead her to the transformation she craved, or would she retreat once again into the comfort of old habits? Tomorrow's meeting could shift everything. As she nestled in for the night, a whispered question lingered in her mind. Would she have the courage to embrace the challenge ahead, or would doubt claim one last victory? The next day dawned with a sense of urgency pounding in Sarah's chest. She had drafted her notes meticulously, ensuring she had questions ready to engage with Claire. As she stood in front of the bathroom mirror, an overpowering wave of self-doubt threatened to shatter her resolve. Was she truly prepared? Could she make a meaningful impression? Dismissing those thoughts as best as she could, she conjured up the face of Claire, a beacon of encouragement from the previous day. Walking through the diner doors felt like stepping into a different world, one filled with endless possibilities mingling with the familiar scent of coffee and freshly baked pastries. "Good morning, Sarah." Claire's cheerful voice cut through the noise of clinking cups and chattering customers. Her bright demeanor sparked a flicker of hope in Sarah's mind. Today wasn't just about making connections, it was about proving to herself that she could evolve. "Hi, Claire." "Thanks for having me," Sarah replied, her voice steadier than she felt inside. They settled into a quieter corner, the energy of the bustling diner somehow amplifying Sarah's nerves. "So, what would you like to know first?" Claire asked, leaning in, her interest palpable. "I guess I want to understand how you built your brand," Sarah said, feeling her confidence teeter. "What were the biggest challenges you faced?" Claire chuckled softly, a knowing glint in her eyes. "Oh, there were plenty. The most significant was figuring out how to balance my passion with practicality. I learned that every setback was an opportunity for growth." Each word resonated within Sarah, and she took meticulous notes, the ink soaking into the pages like a lifeline. The conversation flowed naturally, Claire recounting her trials, but Sarah was taken aback when Claire turned the questions back to her. "What about you? What do you think your biggest hurdle will be?" Claire queried, her gaze inviting yet probing. Caught off guard, Sarah hesitated. "I think it's believing in myself. I've spent so long trapped in my comfort zone, and now it feels like I'm supposed to leap into this world where everyone else seems to thrive." Claire nodded knowingly. "That's common. But you have something many don't: determination. When I started, I faced rejection constantly, but I didn't let it define me." The conversation shifted gears, and Claire provided Sarah with a list of resources, books, courses, even podcasts that had inspired her. As the words spilled forth, Sarah absorbed them eagerly. Yet, a question hung in the air like an uninvited guest. What if I fail? What if I can't keep up? The fear slipped past her lips, unfiltered, raw. "Failing is part of the journey," Claire affirmed, her tone firm. "It becomes a step toward clarity. You might discover that the path isn't what you thought it would be, but that doesn't mean it's wrong." A tangle of emotions twisted in Sarah as she battled with this new perspective. Could failure really be a part of success? Her past echoed in her mind missteps and unmet expectations, but Claire's words felt like a lifeline thrown her way. Could she dare to embrace that failure might also be a form of empowerment? After their meeting, Sarah lingered at the booth, her heart racing not from anxiety but from an unfamiliar thrill. The day ahead was not simply about lessons in business, It was about forging a new identity. Each step she took began to feel like a conscious decision towards self-betterment, distancing herself from the inertia that defined her before. Back at home, she faced her notebook once more, but this time her question shifted direction. Instead of asking, "What if I fail?" she wrote, "What will I gain from trying?" The shift in perspective subtly charged the atmosphere around her. As she filled the page, new ideas sprouted, igniting a flame of ambition. But just as quickly as her resolve strengthened, a nagging question crept in: was she prepared to face the inevitable setbacks that would come with this journey? As she closed her notebook, Sarah's heart raced again at the thought of facing her fears. Would she embrace this uncertainty, or would the comfort of her past whisper her back into submission? The challenge awaited, looming large and beckoning. Tomorrow, she would step deeper into the unknown. Could she solidify her newfound determination, or would the shadows of doubt loom larger than ever? The following day brought with it an uncharacteristic brightness that permeated Sarah's thoughts. She could feel a familiar mix of excitement and anxiety bubbling just beneath the surface as she navigated her morning routine. Today wouldn't simply be a continuation of yesterday. It would mark another leap into the unknown. Having carefully studied Claire's list of recommended resources, Sarah was even more resolute in her mission to seek out knowledge and expand her capabilities. On the subway ride downtown, she flipped through the pages of a book Claire had suggested, an insightful narrative on navigating uncertainty in business. The words resonated with her, weaving a tapestry of wisdom around her doubts. She found herself underlining passages that echoed her struggles and aspirations, mentally preparing for what lay ahead. Arriving at work, the buzzing atmosphere felt oppressive compared to the previous day's clarity. Her colleagues moved like polished machines, engrossed in their routines and banter. Sarah stood still, the weight of her insecurities re-emerging with force. She could hear whispers of not fitting in, not being enough. But the resolve she built was stronger than the doubts that clawed at her. Focusing on her tasks, she decided to implement a strategy she had gleaned from the book. She approached her supervisor, Mark, and inquired about potential projects that required more involvement. "Could I take the lead on an upcoming presentation?" she asked, her voice wavering slightly. Mark raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised that Sarah would offer herself up for more responsibility. He shifted his gaze, weighing the response. After a moment, he nodded. "Sure, Sarah. I think that's a great idea." As he walked away, pride surged within her. She had taken the initiative, not as a mere afterthought, but as an active participant in her own narrative. The satisfaction, however, was fleeting. With it came a storm of doubts. What if the presentation went poorly? What if her colleagues questioned her ability? Each fear uncoiled in her mind, each thought stoking the fire of her anxiety. But what if she succeeded? The thought flickered through her consciousness. Instantly, Sarah grabbed her notebook and began jotting down all the details to prepare. Outlining her plan, she felt a renewed sense of direction. Every assertion she made on paper seemed to solidify her burgeoning self-belief. Later that afternoon, during a break, Sarah noticed her colleague, Jenna, staring at her computer screen with a frown. Jenna was typically effusive and confident, which only deepened Sarah's insecurities. Gathering her courage, Sarah approached her. "Hey Jenna, is everything all right? You seem stressed." Jenna sighed, her shoulders easing as she acknowledged Sarah's gesture. "I've been working on a project that's not going quite as planned. I'm not sure I'll meet the deadline." Instead of curling into her own anxieties, Sarah offered her assistance. "Maybe I can help. I've done some research that might be useful." To her surprise, Jenna smiled, visibly relieved. "Really? That would be awesome." A wave of warmth filled Sarah, the shared effort igniting something within her. As they collaborated over the next hour, Sarah found moments where her insights were valued, where her perspective mattered. The realization hit her hard. What if her contributions could make a difference, not just in her own life, but in someone else's too? By the end of the day, the experience felt transformational. Sarah walked away from that collaboration with a new understanding of her potential. She was capable of more than she had ever acknowledged. But as she ventured home, shadows from the day still loomed over her. What if this newfound confidence was just a fleeting facade? Could she maintain this momentum, or would her fears claw their way back into her psyche? Tomorrow would present Sarah with a bigger stage and higher stakes. Would she seize the momentum she had built, or would it slip away like sand through her fingers? The next morning dawned, its brilliance muted under a veil of uncertainty. As Sarah stepped onto the subway platform, a heavy unease gripped her. The excitement she felt the day before was eclipsed by a stifling pressure. Today was not just another presentation, it was a test of everything she had been working toward, a potential turning point in her career. The anticipation built in her throat like palpable electricity as she sat at her desk, rehearsing her presentation in the corners of her mind. Each slide held a mirror to her deepest fears and hidden aspirations. Would they see past her hesitation? Would her colleagues respect her insights or roll their eyes in skepticism? She had prepared meticulously, yet the prospect of failure lingered like an unwelcome guest. Mark was scheduled to arrive shortly, along with a trio of senior managers for a dry run of the material. Each tick of the clock echoed in her ears, amplifying her anxieties. "Focus," she whispered to herself. "You've done the research. You're prepared." But the internal dialogue quickly spiraled into a who's who of self-doubt. What if they asked questions she couldn't answer? What if her hands trembled or her voice cracked? Finally, as the team filtered into the boardroom, Sarah set her shoulders back and forced herself to remember the essence of the encouragement she had internalized. She glanced at the meticulously crafted slides, allowing her passion for the subject to overshadow the churning in her stomach. "Let us begin," Mark said, cutting through her thoughts. As she stepped forward, the early tremors of fear melted away. Her body moved automatically, hands gesturing deliberately to reinforce her words. Each point flowed naturally from her lips as she spoke about her findings with a clarity she didn't expect to have. The audience, a mix of skepticism and intrigue, began to shift as she articulated not just facts, but the profound implications of her research. The dialogue shifted from merely presenting her work to engaging in spirited discussions. Questions emerged, some challenging but others reflecting genuine interest. Sarah felt herself thrive in the exchange, gaining momentum with each interaction. Certainly, an unforeseen confidence began to root itself deep within her. But the moment of triumph was unexpectedly laced with vulnerability when Jenna presented a challenge. "Scott mentioned last week that he wasn't convinced of the viability of this. How would you respond to critiques from a financial standpoint?" The question hung in the air like a sword drawn. Sarah's heart raced. It was one of her weakest areas, and something she hadn't fully prepared to defend. A part of her wanted to shrink back, to retreat into the safety of silence, but she couldn't. This was the litmus test. A wall of silence enveloped the room. She took a breath and allowed herself one moment of vulnerability. "I admit that financial viability isn't my strongest side. However, here's my vision." As she shifted gears, weaving in methodologies and projections that she had studied, she felt her resolve strengthening. She could turn this question into a chance to show her willingness to learn, to adapt. To her surprise, it was Mark who chimed in next. "That's a brave admission, Sarah. I appreciate your honesty. And you're right, a well-rounded argument requires all angles." The weight of the previous discomfort lifted slightly. Sarah could sense a shift. Fear hadn't defeated her. Instead, it had transformed into an opportunity for collective growth. As the meeting concluded, she felt a rush of exhilaration. It wasn't simply about delivering a presentation. It was about her development, her willingness to confront uncomfortable truths and accept help when needed. Leaving the room, Sarah encountered Jenna outside. "You killed it in there." "Honestly, I wasn't sure what to expect." A laughter bubbled from her, an exhale of relief mingling with triumph. "Let us keep this momentum going," Jenna replied. "Let us tackle those financial projections together." As Sarah nodded, a thought struck her. This was not just about her own growth but deepening connections with colleagues she'd admired from afar. Was this the start of a collaborative movement in the office? But as they walked toward their desks, Sarah couldn't shake an undercurrent of doubt. What would happen when the next challenge arose? Would she be able to maintain this newfound footing, or was it merely a patch on a shifting ground yet to reveal itself? That very question clung to her as the day faded into evening, leaving her both eager and apprehensive for what would come next. Tomorrow's meeting loomed larger now, where they were due to present findings to a panel that included external investors. Would she rise to the occasion or falter under pressure? What truths about her resilience awaited discovery? As Sarah settled into the gloom of another early morning, the anticipation from the day before had been replaced by overwhelming apprehension. The harsh fluorescent lights of the office felt more like interrogation lamps than beacons of productivity. How does one balance the thrill of accomplishment with the dread of the unknown? With her notes spread across her desk, her mind whirred with concerns. Presenting to the panel would be a different caliber of challenge, one that would pit her against seasoned investors with years of experience. Every silver lining had its cloud, and the reality of potentially stumbling this time gnawed at her. Determined not to let fear prevail, Sarah rose from her desk with a single purpose. She needed to refine her understanding of financial implications, not to just answer questions, but to anticipate them. She approached Jenna, who was engrossed in spreadsheets. "Mind if we go over the financial projections again?" Jenna looked up, her eyebrows lifting in surprise. "Sure. But I thought you'd be focusing on the narrative?" "I want to walk that line," Sarah replied earnestly. "The story is vital, but we can't ignore the numbers. This matters." Jenna grinned, and they dove deep into the data. Pie charts morphed into conversations, bar graphs sparked debates. As hours melted away, Sarah realized that this uncharted territory was sprouting new avenues within her mind. With each analytical breakthrough, her confidence gradually began to iron out the wrinkles of uncertainty that had plagued her. As lunchtime approached, they exchanged ideas not just about figures but the emotional resonance of the presentation. Sarah discovered that she relished this interplay between logic and storytelling. It felt empowering not just to prepare her voice for delivery but to intertwine that voice with the substance of her material. Her insecurities began to simmer down, overshadowed by a desire to effectively communicate her vision. "Let us role-play the presentation," Jenna suggested, her enthusiasm infectious. They staged a mock panel, and as Sarah stepped into the spotlight, she realized how vital this was. The ability to engage and persuade challenged her on every level. But doubt lurked behind her exhilaration. What if her ability to adapt to the questions did not translate to the actual encounter? Every time she swayed over a tough question during practice, the specter of a million critical eyes danced in the back of her mind. Yet, instead of recoiling from that fear, she leaned into it. When the day finally arrived, Sarah stood at the entrance of the boardroom, a swell of warm confidence singing through her veins. She wasn't merely about to present her findings. She was prepared to ascend, to earn respect, and more importantly, to prove her worth to herself. As she entered, her heart beat steady, a rhythmic pulse guiding her forward. She began with the same zeal that had poured out of her during the dry run, capturing the essence of her work, threading in the financial insights they had painstakingly dissected together. But as the evening progressed and questions took flight, she faced an unforeseen twist. One of the investors, a sharply dressed man with steely eyes, posed a direct question about potential weaknesses in her projections. His voice was devoid of any warmth, a laser cutting through her resolve. "Your ideas are solid, but speculation can only stretch so far. How will you defend against unpredictable market fluctuations?" A moment of stilted silence enveloped the room. Sarah's breath hitched, memories of her doubts flooding back. But she remembered Jenna's encouragement, their combined efforts, the potential she had found within herself. "You're right. Unpredictability is an inherent risk," she began, voice steadying. "But it's precisely why we're prepared with varying scenarios, risk management practices, and ongoing market analysis." Each word flowed with intention. She could feel her energy shifting, connecting not only to the strong potential of her project but to the minds that could propel it forward. By dinner's end, she walked out of that room with something she hadn't walked in, with a newfound belief that the stage could be hers to command, no matter the audience. Yet in the aftermath, under the glow of the office lights, uncertainty still crouched nearby. Had she truly crossed a pivotal threshold, or merely scratched the surface of a larger journey? The lingering question remained, what if, when faced with her next real challenge, the confidence she had just discovered disappeared in the shadows? Tomorrow would not simply bring a new day, but a new test, one that would call into question everything she had mustered just moments ago. How would she respond when the stakes rose yet again? Morning crept into Sarah's mind like the first rays of light threading through darkened curtains. Today, she faced the dawning realization that this journey was far from over. The taste of accomplishment was bittersweet, but beneath it lay a pulsing undercurrent of fear. She had navigated one intimidating presentation, but the echo of that investor's scrutiny still lingered, demanding a deeper level of readiness. As she settled into her workspace, clarity emerged with the sun. Today demanded a shift, a step beyond merely overcoming doubt. It was time to transform that doubt into an ally. The map of her professional landscape was littered with potential pitfalls, and she needed to forge a path not just for her project but for her own growth. Drawing in a steadying breath, she resolved to engineer a plan. Her immediate task was to delve deeper into the mechanics of her project, understanding not just the numbers but the intricate workings of her industry. With renewed determination, she sought Jenna again. I want to analyze market trends this time. Can we pull up the last 5 years? Jenna looked intrigued. Absolutely. We can identify how external factors have shifted investor confidence. It'd be illuminating. Gravitating toward their shared ambition, the two women found themselves absorbed in patterns of past behavior, the rise and fall of investments influenced by economic paradigms. This experience threaded a fine wool of connection between Sarah's analysis and intuition. Each discovery taught her not only about the sector but about her capacity to unveil truths. The numbers encapsulated a narrative she hadn't fully grasped during her presentation. There were peaks and troughs, figures telling stories of resilience and failure. If I can master the trends, Sarah contemplated aloud, I'll weave these insights into our future proposals. As they worked side by side, Sarah noticed a marked difference in her thoughts. Each data point transformed into a building block of confidence. She wanted to share not only a proposal but a vision of resilience. For the first time, she held a sense of possibility in juxtaposition to her fears. Each statistic became an ally, each insight was a weapon against uncertainty. Fueled by this invigorated creativity, Sarah decided it was prudent to engage with some industry literature. Gleaning insights from seasoned veterans could only bolster her foundation. The idea of reading case studies, a mix of triumphs and catastrophic misfires, seemed both daunting and invigorating. She put together a list of influential business leaders, aiming to dissect their pivotal decision-making moments. That evening, as she leafed through articles and interviews, she cultivated an unquenchable thirst for knowledge beyond her comfort zone. It was an exhilarating roller coaster, usefully blurring the lines between theory and practical application. Each story underlined the lesson that success was not solely about avoiding risk but skillfully navigating it. Yet a tremor of apprehension lingered. The narratives swirled with tales of backlashes against missteps. Sarah found herself grappling with a question she couldn't shake. If success was defined by resilience, where did failure fit in? Would she ever feel fully equipped to face the looming challenges without an undertone of dread? After absorbing insights long into the night, she turned off her desk lamp, yet rest eluded her. Waves of doubt crashed against her newfound resolve. For every empowering realization, a whisper of criticism lingered. Had she made sufficient progress? Would she continue to falter when thrust into new situations? As she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, she understood she had only begun to scratch the surface of her capabilities. Navigating the intricate maze of her industry didn't come with a manual. The landscape was rife with unpredictability, and uncertainty was an omnipresent shadow. In that dawn of realization, she sat up, fueled by intense determination. A decision began to crystallize. I must seek guidance from mentors, she whispered into the dark, allowing the words to resonate. For amid the looming insecurity, A voice in her heart called for connection, a stake to reinforce the whirlpool of ideas swirling inside her. Tomorrow would not just entail another day of striving but stepping boldly towards mentorship opportunities and embracing the experiences of others. With a driven pulse beating in her chest, she knew one thing: the journey ahead stood as her scale of proving worth, both to herself and the world around her. As she readied for sleep, the question ignited within her: who could she turn to for guidance, and what truths would they unveil? The morning sun cast a warm glow over the diner as Sarah entered, a tangible excitement coursing through her veins. Today marked a defining moment. She was ready to reach out for mentorship beyond the safety of her familiar world. The conversations with Claire and Jenna had ignited a passion within her, a desire to interlace her journey with the wisdom of those who had come before her. Determination guided her as she opened her notebook, flipping to a fresh page. A list of potential mentors filled the spaces, names of inspiring individuals from the community and industry leaders whose journeys she had admired. She planned to craft personalized emails, each one infused with her genuine aspiration to learn and grow. A familiar face emerged from the rush: Claire, the small business owner who had first helped her envision a brighter future. "Hey, Sarah! How are you?" Claire greeted, her voice rich with sincerity. "Hi, Claire. I'm actually gathering a list of potential mentors and wanted your insight." "I want to reach out to some industry leaders," she replied, her voice steadying with conviction. Claire's expression brightened, her approval evident. "That's an excellent idea. Have you thought about what you're hoping to learn from them?" Sarah nodded, her heartbeat quickening. "I want to dive deeper into market dynamics, financial strategies, and perhaps even the emotional aspects of entrepreneurship, those pivotal moments that alter paths," she explained, confidence rising with every word. "Absolutely. When you reach out, don't hesitate to share your journey. People connect with authenticity," Claire advised, her enthusiasm contagious. As Claire walked away, Sarah felt invigorated. She began drafting her emails, pouring her heart into each message. The act of reaching out felt like an affirmation of her worth. Sentences flowed from her fingers, filled with hunger for knowledge and confidence in her potential. After mailing them off, a sense of unshackled freedom settled in. Today, she was no longer just a waitress at the diner. She was a burgeoning entrepreneur ready to manifest change. The following week, responses trickled in, some rejections but a few promising replies inviting her to coffee or lunch to discuss her ambitions. Each acceptance felt like another layer of her self-doubt peeling away, unveiling a clearer version of herself. Yet as she prepared for these meetings, fear still danced on the edges of her excitement. Would she be able to handle these conversations? What if they unravel her insecurities, exposing the frayed edges of her confidence? But in those moments of trepidation, she held on to a newfound mantra: growth lies beyond the comfort zone. Her first meeting was with Claire, who offered not only her guidance but the opportunity to shadow her in her jewelry business. "Seeing how I operate will give you invaluable insights," Claire said over coffee, her enthusiasm filling the small cafe. Sarah walked away from that meeting inspired. The experience of engaging in hands-on work transformed her understanding of business beyond theory. She dove into everything, from inventory management to marketing strategies, each task further linking her passion to real-world application. Weeks rolled by, filled with meetings, research, and an almost obsessive drive to continue learning. Her monthly presentations at the diner turned into rehearsed discussions about what she was discovering. She presented ideas to her colleagues, receiving feedback and learning how to frame her thoughts under pressure. One evening, as she gave her latest proposal, Sarah felt a shift. The formerly familiar quivers of anxiety that had plagued her now transformed into a thrilling rush of confidence. Her voice resonated, and the engagement from her peers solidified something palpable within her. She had become a participant in her narrative. But one pivotal moment emerged when her manager, Mark, approached her with unexpected praise. "I've noticed a huge shift in your contributions. You really understand your stuff now." His acknowledgement struck her like thunder, echoing across the many insecurities that had plagued her existence. Drifting home that night, Sarah felt an overwhelming sense of accomplishment. She had transcended the boundaries of her past, evolving beyond the waitress at the diner to a confident woman with a vision. The challenges of her previous life, those moments of doubt, fear, and insecurity, became stepping stones toward her success. But it wasn't simply about professional growth. This journey entwined with an intrinsic realization of self-worth. In confronting her fears, she had developed resilience and richness in her character. It struck her with clarity: she could shape her destiny, one step at a time. As the sun set on her transformed life, Sarah penned a reflective entry in her notebook, a testament to her evolution. I am capable. I can navigate the world of business, mentorship, and impact. Each word resonated with truth, grounding her newfound belief. With her gaze toward the horizon, she knew that the path ahead would not be easy, but it would be hers nonetheless. She felt ready to encounter the ups and downs of entrepreneurship with grace, equipped with the courage that had blossomed within her. Tonight was not just a conclusion to a chapter, it marked the beginning of her thrilling journey toward professional and personal fulfillment. The future lay open before her, a canvas for her to paint her dreams boldly, unapologetically. Now was the moment to seize every opportunity and confront every challenge, for she had finally transformed more than just a girl with dreams. She was a woman driven by determination. And to you, dear audience, don't wait even one more second to share in this transformative journey of growth and resilience. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support these incredible narratives. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Engage with the remarkable stories that illuminate our paths. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion and understand the power of overcoming adversity. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support for tales of triumph and transformation.